and welcome to another House of Wisdom video. Today we're going to be looking at the Spyderco Lil Native. This Lil Native is the best knife around except for one flaw, which I'm going to talk to you about after I talk about all the good qualities. Let's talk about the company for a little bit. Spyderco is a knife manufacturer started by Sal Glasser and based in Golden, Colorado. Sal has designed many of the knives, however this one is designed by Eric. Here you see Eric's maker mark on the clip side of the blade. On the Para 3, Sal and Eric collaborated. Here you see both Eric's maker mark and Sal's maker mark. However, in the Lil Native, you just see Eric's maker mark. Spyderco has been making knives since 1976, and in 1978, they made their first knife with a hole in the blade, the Spidey hole, for ambidextrous one-handed opening. It was the worker, pictured above on the screen. The Lil Native is based on the Native. I have a copy of it here. The Lil Native is based on the Native with some important differences. It has a smaller blade. It holds a 2.5-inch blade compared to the 3-inch blade of the Native. And it has a compression lock as opposed to the back lock of the Native. Concerning the specifications, the blade length of the Lil Native is 2.47 inches. The handle is 3.47 inches, giving a total knife length of 5.94 inches. The weight of the knife is 2.4 ounces. I wanted to talk a little bit about the weight of the knife. The light version of the Native here in the CPM S110V steel and the blue handle weighs 2.5 ounces. This is only 2.4 ounces and it's much smaller. The compression lock is heavier. It's based off of the compression lock similar to the Para 3. The Para 3 is a compression lock also, just like the Lil Native. Obviously you can see some similarities. They have the same G10 handle and the same compression lock. The Para 3 weighs 3 ounces and the Lil Native 2.4 ounces, so it's a similar knife in a smaller package and a lighter package. They have a version of the Lil Native coming out with back lock that takes the weight from 2.4 ounces to 2.1 ounces. That'll be coming out later. Another knife that's similar in size to the Lil Native by Spyderco is the Dragonfly. The Dragonfly on this version comes in at 1.3 ounces, which is almost half the weight of the Lil Native. Again, the back lock makes it really light and it uses an FRN handle rather than the heavier G10 handle with the heavier compression lock. The Lil Native is an amalgam of two different knives, the Native and the Para 3, and it uses the strengths of both of these knives. The Native uses the blade and handle shape, and this handle has a better blade to handle ratio than the Para 3. And the Para 3 uses the same G10 for the handle and the compression lock, which is better for one-hand opening and closing. The Lil Native has differences to both also. For example, it has no tip-down carry option, no lanyard hole, and uses a wire clip. The backlock version will have all of these things, and I'll put a copy of the backlock version up in the top so you can see it. I want to compare the Lil Native with the Para 3. On the pivot end, they're very similar in size. As a matter of fact, they're pretty much identical. However, whenever you look at the knives as far as their width goes, you can see that the Lil Native has a much better profile. And part of that is because the Para 3 uses a very large hole and it's far from the cutout for the finger choil. The hole is smaller on the Lil Native and is closer, so it's still easy to access and easy to flip out. The Spidey hole on the Para 3 is very large. You can even use it as a pinky ring. The handle is shorter also, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, they don't have the lanyard tube, and as you can tell, the blade is far away from the end of the knife because of the lanyard tube. They put the clip on and then they added the lanyard tube, it seems, as an afterthought, whereas the blade of the Lil Native is much closer to the end of the knife. It's a much better design, I believe, and makes it lighter also. And the clip is different. In the Lil Native, they use the Spyderco loop over wire clip as opposed to a surface mounted spring clip on the Para 3. The blade of the Lil Native is made of S30V steel in a leaf-shaped configuration with a full flat grind and a satin finish. The blade has minimal jimping on the back spine. However, the distal aspect of the handle and the stainless steel liners has jimping. If you use the knife in a 3-finger configuration, your thumb is fully onto the jimping. If you used in the forward choil, your thumb lands about halfway on the jimping. The method of deployment of the knife is by thumb hole. It flips out very nicely. Or by compression lock, you can just activate the compression lock and flip it out like that. The handle is made of black G10 with stainless steel liners. It has the 50-50 forward finger choil like the Native and the Dragonfly. The construction, since it uses a compression lock, it has an open flow-through design with one standoff. There's one standoff, the stop pin, and the pivot for points of attachment. On the pivot, it runs on washers and uses a T9 Torx bit to disassemble it. The lock, as I've mentioned, is a compression lock, and there will soon be coming out a Lil Native version with a back lock also. The pocket clip is an embedded loop-over deep carry wire clip for right-hand tip-up carry only. The backlock version will be coming with the Native's surface-mounted spring clip with an integrated lanyard hole and a 4-point carry. The ergonomics of the knife are very good. I'm going to talk about the Native, for example. With the forward finger choil, you could grip the knife and you had a lot of knife left over. And the same thing with the Para 3. If you use the forward finger choil, you have a lot of knife left over. And with this knife, it is a better fit, I think. If you use the forward finger choil, you have some knife left over, but it's not a ridiculously large amount of knife left over. The signage on the knife is usual for Spyderco. On the show side, they have Spyderco and the steel type, which is CPM S30V, with the Spyderco maker's mark. And on the clip side, they have Salglesser's maker mark, Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. The handle is sterile. So what do I think about the Spyderco Lil Native? There is a lot to like about this knife. It combines all my favorite Spyderco elements. It has the embedded loop over deep carry reversible clip. It has the compression lock, one of my favorite locks, because your hand is out of the blade path. With a frame lock or a liner lock, you have to put your hand in the blade path, talk a little, and then move your hand out of the way. With a compression lock, your hands are at the back whenever the blade closes itself. It's a great idea. I like the open back construction also for easy maintenance. I love the 50-50 forward finger choil. It gives you a great control of the tip of the knife whenever you need to do close work, like taking a splinter out of your finger. I really like this textured G10 scale also. It gives great grip and texture, but it isn't harsh. And I like the great blade to handle ratio of the Native that this copies also, and its lightness. It is only 2.4 ounces, which puts it in a great class of lightness for a knife. Are there opportunities for improvement? Well, yes, I alluded to earlier that if you used just the plastic handles like the FR end of the real Native in a back lock, it would be a lot lighter, and the one coming out that has the back lock but that uses G10 handles is 2.1 ounces rather than 2.4 ounces. But I think the compression lock is worth the wait. Well, now I'm going to talk about the major flaw that it has. I'm going to close it for you and you'll see the major flaw. You see that? it doesn't close all the way whenever you flip it close, and I'll flip it over and show you why. In the recess cutout for the compression lock release tab, you don't see anything right there, but wait until I close it. You see that thing popping up there? That is the end of the forward finger choil and the heel of the blade. I don't know if Spyderco didn't make a prototype or they didn't catch this before they sent it to production, but whenever you close this knife, if you put your finger there, this end of the forward finger choil and the blade slams into your finger and the knife won't close. It remains about 3 to 4 millimeters from closing. Okay, here's a message to Spyderco. You guys have done this before. I'm going to have another knife that I really like, but this is the Spyderco S, and it has a compression lock also. It has a 2.5-inch blade, and it's a almost 6-inch knife, almost the exact identical size as the Lil Native. And I want to show you how it closes. Whenever you close it, okay, let's look. This forward finger choil is made to exactly fit the cutout for the release tab of the compression lock, and it doesn't hit your finger. I can close this thing and it closes all day, all the way. And let's compare this with the Lil Native. In the Lil Native, you have the finger choil sticking up, hitting your finger. And let's look at why that happened. We'll put them side by side here. Do you see how in the Spyderco S, the cutout is a little more forward? I'll put the cutout here. Okay. You see how in the Spyderco S, it's a little more forward, and the Lil Native is a little more back. And so, as you can see, that rotation there for the forward finger choil, you could move this cutout a little bit forward, and this is just ideas for whenever you do your second iteration of the Lil Native, and then that wouldn't happen. The other thing you could do is you could just move this back 1 or 2 millimeters and make the edge of the blade up 1 or 2 millimeters, and then it wouldn't hit your finger. As it is, in my opinion, this is unacceptable because you have that thing slamming into your hand, but then the knife doesn't completely close. You have to close it, and then you have to give it another little thing like that to get it closed. So, what's a guy to do? Well, in my final summary, Spyderco took a great knife, the Native, and they made it smaller, lighter, and added a compression lock. I like all of those things. But how about this thing where they have the forward finger choil hitting your finger and the knife won't completely close? I don't know. Should I send this back to the retailer or could I modify it? And you could get your fixed angle sharpener and you could sharpen this back maybe 1 millimeter. The secondary bevel is about 1 millimeter, so you could sharpen it back 1 millimeter, maybe 2 millimeters, and you could just have the takeoff less, or you could do it across the whole breadth of the blade to not change that angle, and then you could get a Dremel tool and shave this back a little bit. But for the price of a knife, it should be done well and it should be done right the first time, so I'm going to have to call this a fail. And I don't know if I'm going to send it back or if I'm going to try to modify it because there's so much I love about this knife. One of the deficiencies of my favorite knife, which is the lightest and best, the Dragonfly, is that it's not a good fidget toy. You can flip it out okay, but then it's not so fast going back because you have to release the compression lock. This is great. You can flip it out and then you can touch the compression lock and flip it back with a little 3 millimeter help there. And it's a great fidget toy. It's a great size. I like the ergonomics. So you guys in the comments below, let me know what you think about the Spyderco Lil Native. Should I send it back? Should I try to modify it? And you guys write Spyderco a message or something and tell them to make prototypes and get it right the first time so they don't have this errors. Well, I hate to be negative. Overall, I really like the knife. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day. We'll see you on the next House of Wisdom knife review video.